Showers tonight in the south, some possibly thundery, mainly dry elsewhere though, and staying mild and humid with lows of 14 to 17 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
This is News Talk.
You're very welcome into Thursday evening's Off the Ball. Will O'Callaghan sitting in for Nathan Murphy this evening. We've got plenty of football to come between now and 10, including that Champions League quarter-final between Atletico Madrid and RB Leipzig. There's only two teams left in the competition who have ever lifted the trophy before. That's Barcelona against Bayern Munich. We'll be talking to the Athletics' Dermot Corrigan about that heavyweight clash of the two five-time champions later in the show. Also, we'll be looking forward to Sevilla against Manchester United on Sunday in the Europa League semi-finals, as Sevilla try and win the UEFA Cup/Europa League for the sixth time in their history. We'll also be hearing from Ireland's speedster Jordan Larmour about his adaptation to number 15 and the extra work he's been doing in lockdown to hone his skills in particular for that position. He'll tell us too about what an influence Rob Kearney has been on his career to date. We'll be talking lots of football. We've got John Giles at 7:30, including the FA Cup replays being scrapped, which I'm sure will come up in the news round with Richie in a few minutes. But we've got Damien Delaney with us for the evening. Damien, good evening to you.
How are we doing?
You look back at last night. I know PSG is the reward for whoever comes through between Leipzig and Atletico Madrid. But my word, they got out of jail last night, Damien.
Yeah, they did. But look, they've been beaten so often in the quarter-final stage that last night psychologically is huge for them to progress to a semi-final, because it's the first time they've kind of been there since the
95.
Which was, that George Weah team, if I'm correct in saying,
yeah.
So there's a huge pressure on them from ownership. There's a huge pressure on them, on the manager from ownership. So if they'd have went out again in the quarter-final stage, I'm not sure where they would have went as a football club. But they're into the semi-final stage now, and this kind of strange format might actually suit them. Hopefully Mbappe will be worth more than 30 minutes yesterday, because he changed the game essentially when he came on. I think he took a lot of the pressure off Neymar, took a lot of the attention off Neymar, although I thought Neymar was sublime last night. I really do. It was the first time I really saw him on his own take a game of that magnitude by the scruff of the neck in the way that Messi or Ronaldo would have done, especially in the first half, because they were so slow as a team in the first half. But he really kept them going, and they were 1-0 down, but he kept going, and he had some great moments. Missed a couple of chances, a little bit of rust, but I tell you what, he was a threat for the whole night, and he went up in my estimation a little bit.
Yeah, well, his work rate went up.
Yeah.
Mbappe was interviewed after the game, and Mbappe was saying that was one of the things he was really impressed by Neymar. He said, look, he missed a couple of chances, but Neymar kept working, and there he was at the end of the game to create the chances for his teammates to put them into the last four.
Yeah. Well, me and Joe were talking last night about that, he left to get out of Messi's shadow, and he went to a club like PSG. So, you can easily say it's for the money. Potentially it could be, I'm going to take a club that was, not an aristocrat of Europe, and I'm going to drag it in and be a mainstay in Europe. And last night were the games that he needs to produce under pressure, and he did. So for his legacy, if he could win a European Cup or a couple of European Cups with PSG and kind of drag them from just being a very good French team and then faltering in the latter stages of the Champions League, I presume that's on his list of things to do. But look, he was great last night, and hopefully Mbappe gets fit. They look a decent side. With the shortened format and the single legs, I think that they'll get up to speed very, very quickly. And with the rest they've had over the last 3 months, once they get the rust out of their system, they could be contenders. Yeah,
only PSG's third game since lockdown. They won two cup competitions, the French Cup and the League Cup, in the two matches they played before this. Richie McCormack is here as well. Richie, how are things?
Gents, how are you?
Actually, look, we're keeping going in this these balmy conditions, and football every single night of the week. I know you like your football every night, Richie, don't you?
Yeah. The thing about it is the humidity. We're not the only ones moaning about it today, because obviously it's pretty close, as they might say outside. Damien, put in your earphones.
Turn them on.
I'll turn them on, yeah. Ronnie O'Sullivan, did you see what he was giving out about today? There mightn't have been a sinner inside the crucible, but he was complaining about the humidity in there today, saying it was giving him almighty kicks. So even without a single fan present, and even without the sun beating down on him, Ronnie O'Sullivan was still feeling the humidity today.
Do you know what, Richie? I think Ronnie O'Sullivan is actually doing something very clever during this World Championship, and even the week or two before it. We've had Ronnie O'Sullivan complain about everything. No crowds, then crowds, then his opponents, then the respect or disrespect he's getting, then he disrespects his own opponents after he finishes, and he's taken the royal P out of every interview he's done so far. Ronnie O'Sullivan, the entire focus seems to be on what he's saying as opposed to what he's actually doing.
It does, and to be honest with you, like World Snooker and Barry Hearn would be well within the rights to actually have Ronnie O'Sullivan within their employ at this stage, because he has done more by just talking and given an interesting interview than almost anybody has done for the game over the past 5 or 10 years. He's raised the profile of the World Snooker Championships, and they might have died on their arse in the shadow of the Champions League and the Europa League over the past couple of weeks. And aside from a brief little bit of a potential Barney between Anthony McGill and his opponent earlier on in the week, there hasn't been that much to speak about. You're not going to get those quotes out of Mark Selby. You're not going to get those quotes out of Kyron Wilson. So thank God for Ronnie O'Sullivan.
Yeah, somebody said that was quite true. I don't agree with him on the fact there's no players coming through, but we're still talking about Mark Williams now. We're still talking about Selby, Trump. We're talking about Ronnie O'Sullivan. It's the same handful of people who are actually keeping any kind of interest in the game. And Ronnie O'Sullivan is a much faster talker and probably more of a hype man for himself than any of the rest of those players combined. Damien, are you much of a snooker fan, or do you watch it?
Absolutely no idea, but nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Ronnie O'Sullivan might convert you.
Yeah, look, I did see his interview because it went viral where he was kind of saying that, the other players aren't very good, and I did laugh at that, and that was quite funny. But I wouldn't know enough as to why he's saying these things, or whether he's playing well or not at the minute. I have no idea, to be honest with you.
There you go. Smack Talk hasn't convinced Damien to be interested in snooker.
It's tough watch snooker, isn't it?
It's a long watch. You have to commit to it, and sometimes you have to sit down on a frame. And I would advise if you're going to watch it, watch Ronnie O'Sullivan, because you won't have to watch too much of a break between shots. He'll just go out there and do the damage.
Yeah, but when you're doing the damage, it's not very exciting, is it?
Ah, well, there you go.
Or is it? Like, I don't know.
There is.
Go on, Richie, convert him here.
No, snooker is a majestic sport at its best, and oftentimes you will see Ronnie O'Sullivan playing the best snooker you can see played. And, to be honest, it lacks a lot when you don't have a crowd in there. They might be having crowds in for finals weekend at the Crucible, but there is a noticeable dip when there isn't anybody there to add to the tension, to gasp when somebody misses a really easy red or whatever. But O'Sullivan is the best you're going to get in terms of watchability, and he can entertain even when he's not talking. Yeah,
look, the purist enjoys far more a big break. It's actually a nice safety, and the knowledgeable crowd, TM as they call it, the Crucible, give it a very light clap. And make sure they acknowledge that. Now, we're on the news round here on Off the Ball. With thanks to Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters. Richie, we're starting off the news round with a COVID-19 case, which is at Munster.
Yeah, the first really in Irish rugby. Munster have confirmed that an academy player at the province has tested positive for COVID-19. They say the player is part of their wider training squad, but has not been at the high performance centre this week. The senior and academy squads didn't train today as a precaution, and the player is self-isolating. One other senior player and 5 academy players are also isolating as they've been deemed close contacts. Munster are due to resume their Pro 14 season against Leinster at the Aviva on Saturday week.
The concern would be on this one, Rich, that there's 5 other close contacts with this player. Fingers crossed, It's not going to be a case of it spread to anyone else. But for Munster, I guess it's understandable that they've packed up training for a few days, just see what happens with the rest of the testing, and they'll be hoping this is just one isolated case.
Yeah, they say the close contacts weren't necessarily because they were all part of the one squad, but rather because they were in a certain living or social situation. So fingers crossed this hasn't spread outwards and almost been a starting point for worse within the squad. Fingers crossed they're on top of it. They have like umpteen regulations and ways to manage these things and protocols that they have to follow. So fingers crossed that this is not the tip of an iceberg, but just something that they're dealing with, can set aside, and we can actually see some rugby on Saturday week.
Nonetheless, though, I guess it's disruptive, no more so than it would have been for Atletico Madrid getting ready to go to Lisbon, to be dealing with all this just a week and a bit out now from the 22nd of August and the return to rugby.
Yeah, I guess so. But you can, in a way, you can do what Atletico did, or you can do what Barcelona have done. Like we saw with Toledo there yesterday, at Barca testing positive. Like he is in the same position that this academy player is at Munster, in that he's kind of in and around the senior squad, but not really. And he wasn't involved since the weekend. So the chances of the infection across the last couple of days aren't actually really that high at all. He's kind of set aside. He's self-isolating. Barca can move on and get on with their business, and hopefully Munster are in a pretty similar position that they can get on with whatever they need to do in preparation for Saturday week.
Damien, thankfully you got retired and got out before any of this pandemic happened, and you didn't have to deal with COVID-19 and testing and everything that's happening. But even I think of your old club Waterford, who had a couple of suspected cases, those cases had to go through, and now they're back playing and training again. I'd imagine what it must be like for a player at the moment to have all these kind of regular checks, all these regulations I would imagine it's extremely disruptive compared to what is the normal, as I use air quotes.
I've no doubt that it is disruptive, but at the same point you become used to it very, very quickly, and you have to accept, and I'm pretty sure every player and manager accept the protocols that are put in place by the science people or the doctors or whatever it is, and you just come in, you accept it, because the alternative is you don't come in at all. So I think if someone said to me you have to do X, Y and Z before you're let in the building or before you can play or train or whatever it may be, then you just do it, because the end result is you get to train and you get to play football matches and you get back to some semblance of normality. But look, some players like to be free and come in training and enjoy themselves. Other players don't like training so much, so it won't bother them. Some players like crowds, don't like crowds, whatever it may be. So it'll suit some, won't suit others. Like having this massive break and then coming back and playing so many games in such a short space of time. Some people will enjoy that, some people won't. So, but ultimately, you know, if you want to play football, you have to get used to it.
Richie, we've got football on the pitch tonight. Tottenham's conquerors, RB Leipzig, up against Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, a semi-final date with Paris Saint-Germain awaits the winners of tonight's game in Lisbon. An 8 o'clock kickoff to that meeting of Atletico and RB Leipzig. Jan Oblak starts in goal for Atleti. Kieran Trippier is preferred at right full in a back four that also includes Stefan Savic, Jose Jimenez and Renan Lodi. Koki, Hector Herrera and Yannick Carrasco are in midfield with Marcos Llorente and Saul Niguez in support of Diego Costa. For Leipzig tonight, Peter Galaxy, the former Liverpool goalkeeper, starts in goal. It's a back four then of Halstenberg, Upamecano, Klosterman and Angelino. In midfield, Campbell is the pivot with Sabitzer and Leimer either side of him, and Poulsen is their target man with Nkunu and Olmo either side of him up front. As I say, kickoff is at 8 o'clock.
Damien, I suppose it's so long ago, I should really mention Atletico Madrid are the conquerors of Liverpool, the defending champions, but we're going back nearly 5 months at this stage since that game took place. Atletico Madrid, for me, must be relishing this side of the draw, because they've avoided so many heavyweights. Bayern, Barcelona, Real Madrid were on the other side, so were Man City, so were Juventus. Atletico just can't seem to get over the hump in terms of finals in this competition, but this is a dream chance for them to get to a final.
It is, and I think that secretly or behind closed doors they will be talking about, look, you know, we need to double our focus now and do what we need to do to make it to a final in a one-off game, in a final against a Bayern or a Barca or one of the big hitters on the other side. They'd probably fancy their chances. They'd probably fancy their chances against any team that doesn't contain Cristiano Ronaldo, because he seems to be the scourge of Atletico. So they won't be taking Leipzig lightly tonight. They won't think for a second that Leipzig are kind of an easy pass for them, or PSG for that matter won't be either. With the manager they have, he will have them super focused, super on it tonight, and I do fancy him to go through tonight.
I kind of wonder as well whether this suits Diego Simeone quite well, given that they go into one-off games, no matter who they play. He can shut down the opposition and look to nick a goal. This is different to having to beat a team over two legs. I think if any of the teams left, this competition format might suit Atletico.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. Simeone can definitely set a team up to kind of squeeze the life out of a game, especially if they come through tonight and they're up against a PSG. He could really, really strangle PSG and hit him on a counter, because he has the players to do that. But I was really impressed with them against Liverpool, especially Partey, Costa as well, and Morata. I mean, absolutely brilliant. They were absolutely fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them tonight. They were well worthy of their victory against Liverpool, and I'm looking forward to seeing Leipzig as well, because I was impressed with them against Tottenham. Yeah,
the only thing that's really weird about the format, Timo Werner is gone now because he's already joined Chelsea, because of the weirdness of this pandemic, that the season gets drawn out, but he leaves in the transfer window and he's already left the club. That's a huge blow for Leipzig not to have him. He was very impressive against Spurs in the round of 16.
Yeah, I mean, I think Spurs have gone and signed that boy Højbjerg from Southampton, and I remember thinking after that game that they got absolutely rinsed in the middle of the park by Leipzig. It's small, quick, agile, athletic players who move the ball quickly, and Winks and Co got absolutely torn to shreds in that game. So that's why Tottenham have gone and done that. But back to Leipzig, I do fancy them, to put on a good show tonight and to look brilliant and be fancy with possession and all the movement and everything you expect from them. But I just think Atletico's kind of experience at this level and kind of hard nose will see them through.
Okay, Richie, tell us about what's happened at the Crucible then.
Mark Selby won 6 out of 8 frames this afternoon to lead Ronnie O'Sullivan 9-7 in their World Championship semi-final. They will resume in the morning. Such was the humidity that we mentioned earlier on that they had to change the balls at the mid-session interval this afternoon. Anthony McGill has just resumed against Karen Wilson. They're 8 frames apiece after this morning's session. Wilson won 6 frames of that session. While, as you alluded to there, Will, FA Cup replays will be scrapped next season to help reduce congestion in the fixture schedule. The 2020-21 campaign will be starting later than normal, after the previous one was delayed due to the coronavirus pandemic. Meanwhile, the EFL have confirmed that the semi-finals of the League Cup will be played over one leg instead of two.
Okay, well, UEFA Champions League we've been mentioning and all these cup competitions that are happening. Well, UEFA Champions League nights are back, and to celebrate, OTB has teamed up with Pepsi Max and Doritos for a special remote roadshow which will be live on August 20th. We've got David Myler and Jason McAteer, as well as Celtic manager Neil Lennon and Parkhead legends Chris Sutton and Stilian Petrov. It's an exclusive event. Tickets are limited, so head over to otbsports.com/events to sign up. Pepsi Max and Doritos, it's back. Get ready. Also, a text message coming in. Lads, humidity. I spent a year in Bangladesh with humidity of 75%. Get a cold shower for a year, sweating 5 minutes after the shower. Savage out there. Tom. Yeah, okay, fair enough, Tom. We can't really compete with that. Neymar for Barcelona versus PSG was incredible a few years ago in the quarter-final when Messi was carried shoulder high. Yeah, that was 2016. PSG made one of their quarter-final exits. Neymar was brilliant that night with Barcelona.
He was good that night, definitely. But, you know, in terms of being the main man, Messi will always be the main man at Barca, and that's why he wanted to leave. To get rid of that shadow. So, look, I take your point. He was good in that game, but Barcelona will forever be Messi's team.
Yeah, I think so. And it'd be interesting to see where Neymar is next season, because PSG, again, were kind of doubling down that they want him and Kylian Mbappe to sign new contracts to stay at the club for even longer. If they win the Champions League, that might be a bit easier. A bit of a change in the Dublin backroom team, Richie?
Yeah, Brian O'Regan of Ballyboden St Enda's has been added by manager Desi Farrell to the backroom team of the Dublin senior footballers. However, it's believed that former All-Ireland winner Paul Clark is no longer involved. Graham McDowell endured another tough day today, this time in the opening round of the Wyndham Championship. The Portrush golfer opened with a 3-over-par round of 73 in Flair Country of Greensboro. Out on course, Shane Lowry birdied the first, but he's bogeyed the fourth, and he is back to level par. Seamus Powers parred his first hole. He's level par as well. Harold Varner III is the clubhouse leader on 8 under. While sticking with golf, Alexander Levy has now tested positive for coronavirus. He had already been withdrawn from the European Tour's Celtic Classic this week after he came into contact with somebody back in France who had COVID-19. After initially giving a negative sample on arrival at the course at Celtic Manor, a retest found that Levy had contracted the disease. Roman Vautel will also miss the tournament. That's after being in contact with Levy on the course. Jonathan Caldwell's 4 off the lead on 3 under par. Gavin Moynihan ended the day there today on 3 over par, and it's been a tough day so far as well for Cormac Sharvin. He's currently level par with 2 to play of his opening round. The lead, though, at Celtic Manor is held by the Belgian Thomas Peters, who shot a 7 under par round of 64 today.
Rich, tell us what's been happening in Major League Soccer then.
Yeah, it resumed last night, and with some fans present, particularly in Dallas. And FC Dallas defender Reggie Cannon has condemned those who booed players for taking the knee before his side's MLS home game against Nashville. Approximately 3,000 supporters were allowed to attend the first match for both sides since the COVID-19 pandemic halted their season. MLS teams and players had all agreed to take the knee in protest against racial injustice. Cannon revealed that the players' request for the anthem not to be played was ignored, and he expressed his disgust with the reaction of some fans.
I think it was absolutely disgusting. You got fans booing you for people taking a stand for what they believe in. Millions of other people support this cause. And we've discussed with every other team and the league what we're going to do. And we got fans booing us in our own stadium. How disgraceful is that? Honestly, we discussed that prior to what we were doing. We discussed it with Nashville. Everyone from Nashville was on board. Everyone across the league was on board with what we're going to do.
Damien, it seems to me like there's a massive divide here continuing on in America, because when the BLM situation happened in the Premier League and they decided they were going to take a knee, it's universally respected and things just go on. Here we are, first weekend of the MLS, and the new season just kicked back, and you hear the booings happening for some of the players who decide to do this.
Look, man, if you want to get into the discussion about America and, you know, those Second Amendment, flag-waving, gun-toting kind of, you know...
Here for a week.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of them are just hell-bent on, you know, it's our flag and don't disrespect our flag. Others actually want to say, no, we're not disrespecting the flag, it's just a symbol of protestation. I wouldn't even attempt to get in the sides of Americans and their kind of funny view on the world, to be honest with you, or certain Americans, all of them. I'm pretty sure a lot of them are fine, but look, it was the same last year in the NFL when Trump was complaining about, you know, calling certain players certain names and Colin Kaepernick and everything like that. Some of them can't separate the fact of what Black Lives Matter is and the protestations that are going on from disrespecting the flag and the troops and all that carry on. So all the best to them, to be honest with you, but it's a mess.
Richie, tell us about Thiago, because Liverpool probably need some midfield reinforcements, and it seems that this could actually happen.
It seems so. Liverpool have initiated talks with the Bayern Munich over the potential transfer of Thiago. That's according to Bild in Germany. The Spanish international midfielder is in the final year of his contract now at the Allianz and has already told Bayern that he'd like to leave this summer. It's believed that the Bundesliga champions are looking for €30 million to part ways with the 29-year-old.
In terms of boxing, we heard from the O'Donovan camp last night with Kenneth Egan, his coach, on speaking about how relaxed he is. We've seen the interviews that Eric Donovan's been doing ahead of this fight on Friday, and he seems like a guy who's gone in there with nothing to lose and everything to prove, and he has made weight ahead of Friday for his Sky Sports debut.
He has, for that Intercontinental IBF Super Featherweight title fight. Both he and his opponent, Zelfa Barrett, tipped the scales at £129, 10 ounces. The fight is Kildare native Donovan's first chance to secure an international title. Well, sticking with those matters of fight camp, Katie Taylor says Delphine Pursoon needs to learn how to box. The pair meet on Saturday week in a rematch of their controversial bout from New York last year. Pursoon has accused Taylor of being a punch runaway fighter, but the Bray native has hit back at the Belgian, mocking her Olympic qualifier defeat back in March.
I must say, Richie, I'm actually kind of enjoying the little bit of smack talk between Pursoon and Taylor, because Katie Taylor, one of those things, she's usually very respectful of her opponents. She usually says all the right things beforehand. It's clear that Pursoon has got under her skin a little bit by this talk about her own tactics, and she's more than entitled to have a bit of a shout back.
Yeah, I think being a professional more than just Pursoon has actually gotten to Taylor, because she has come, we must remember, from an environment whereby the best will fight the best, and you will graduate via your weight class against the best of somebody from another country, etc., etc., etc. She went into the professional ranks whereby she was a trailblazer in that respect, and fights to a degree were set up for her to knock down. Now she's navigating that jungle of who to fight next, who actually wants to fight me, who doesn't want to fight me, who do I need to face next to get to where I want to be. And I think she's voicing certain frustrations with navigating that jungle. She had a hit out at Amanda Serrano as well, saying that Serrano's essentially run from this fight, because we know that she was supposed to be the person facing Taylor in the spring. But now it's Pursoon, and she's had to go back at Pursoon. But to be fair, Katie Taylor has taken to the smack talk like a duck to water. It's good to see.
Novak Djokovic is going to New York. Rafa Nadal made the decision not to go to the US Open, but the world number one is going to be there.
Yeah, well, Nadal hasn't had coronavirus and Djokovic has, we must remember, and the men's world number one has confirmed that he will compete at the US Open later this month. A number of big names, including, as you mentioned there, Rafa Nadal, the women's world number one, Ashley Barty is another, have pulled out of the tournament, which will be held behind closed doors at Flushing Meadows from the 31st of this month. Djokovic tested positive for COVID-19 back in June after he controversially hosted those Adria Tour events in the Balkans.
Mesut Ozil has been having his say about his situation at Arsenal, Richie, and he's given a pretty interesting interview to The Athletic today.
He has indeed, and he says he will remain at the club until his contract expires next June. Manager Mikel Arteta said the playmaker didn't feature after the restart due to footballing reasons, but in that interview with The Athletic, Ozil says he is going nowhere.
We'll get into this a bit more later on, Damien. I'm sure we're going to talk about Mesut Ozil a lot, but this is a guy who has been playing Fortnite quite a bit for the last while. He's not even been in Arsenal squads for the last 10, 11 games. Since lockdown, he's been frozen out by his manager. I guess loyalty works both ways. I mean, a few years ago, he signs that contract. They give him $300,000 a week. They sign him up long term. He's entitled to sit around and just live in London for the next year.
Yeah, the most interesting about that interview, it wasn't a message for the fans, it was quite clearly a message for the Arsenal board and owners. You know, what he was saying was just a sugar-coated version of, I'd say, what his agent has been saying, but he said, I'll leave on my terms and I'll leave when I want to leave. No one's going to tell me when I want to leave. And he says all the right things that the fans want to hear. I love the club and I love being here and I love living in London, but he's clearly finished at Arsenal. Something's gone on behind the scenes. He feels like he just doesn't want to play for Arsenal anymore, even though he says he does, so he continues to get paid.
Well, it seems like his drive for football is gone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's hard to ever get that back. Did you ever have a teammate that happened with before?
Oh yeah, plenty. It's difficult situation, because when you're on a lot of money, you don't want to walk away from it. Sometimes you'll go to the club and you'll say, hey look, can we do a deal of some description? I'm not saying Ozil has done that, because he probably doesn't want to do a deal. He probably said, you know what, I like my life in London, I'm settled, I have my charity work going on and a few other bits and pieces, and I'll show up every day on time and get paid. And that seems to be the route he's going.
Yeah, make sure you're out of training early, have the PS4 set up, play a bit of Fortnite for the afternoon. Richie, a few other bits and bobs happening there?
That sounds incredibly like your life, weirdly enough, William. Minus the hot tub, of course. Minus the hot tub.
Hey, look, you got to live life, Richie.
Listen, just be careful you don't drop the controller. Top striker Heung-min Son has won the Premier League Goal of the Season award for his goal against Burnley back in December. Meanwhile, former Spurs defender Jan Vertonghen set to join Benfica on a 3-year deal. The 33-year-old Belgian defender is a free agent. Celtic doing business as well today. They've signed Albion Ayeti from West Ham. The Swiss international joins the Scottish Premiership champions on a 4-year contract. He's moved to England's Premier League a year ago, making 9 substitute appearances and starting 3 cup games, but he failed to score a goal for the Happy Hammers.
All right, that's our news round for this evening. Many thanks to Richie McCormack for joining us. He's back to the tub himself for a little while before he's back in for Tom Dunn from 10 p.m. He becomes DJ Richie McCormack after that, and Damien's going to stay with us for the rest of the football. When we come back from the break, we'll be joined by John Giles.
This time Messi is onside, and it's an identical chip from the young substitute. Brilliant! And Barcelona wrap it up in style in the Camp Nou.
Messi. Oh, brilliant skill from Lionel Messi. Surging forward with real menace here. Brilliant from Messi. Oh, what a goal that is!
It's 2-0. It's Messi. He scored against an English club now. It's Manchester United at a crucial time with 20 minutes to go.
Brilliant ball from Bannigan.